Hello guys and welcome back to another GES, and today I'll be talking about the rest of the superhero movies of 2023 and of course the TV shows as well, which of course means I will be reviewing everything from the last 6 months that has a superhero property based upon a comic book. So without further ado, hi, my name is Tyler and I love film, and today I will be talking about 2023 superhero films and TV shows. Now, enjoy the video. Since Secret Invasion was of course still airing when I made the first video, I will review the rest of it in this video, especially since my opinions on it have changed and my rating has unfortunately lowered. I don't think the series is as bad as many others say it is, but its plot and hook is not very strong. The show is at many times boring and drawn out and does not handle all of its plot lines well, even though many of them are simple and can be handled and have complexity added to them very easily, especially with the runtime of this show and its episodes overall. And the concept of this show, of course, should have been handled better. The actual Secret Invasion comics aren't phenomenal, but they are a great concept and were an interesting read. But an adaptation of the Secret Invasion storyline could easily serve to be one of Marvel's best of all time, and this show could have definitely been great with its concept. It didn't have to include heavy hitters or be a movie, but if it was either of those, it would have been much better. The characters also feel very shallow in the show, especially Nick Fury. It could have been a spy political thriller with sci-fi elements that could have really delved deep into Nick Fury and his past and his choices and who he is as a human being, humanizing him, but yet showing how cold and calculating he can be. There are vague and shallow hints and attempts at this throughout the entire show, but they all fall flat and feel awkward and disjointed and inconsistent throughout the entirety of the show's runtime. On many of the new characters that the show introduces, it does not handle well, and they are not compelling at all, especially considering Emilia Clarke's character is now one of the most powerful, or the most powerful, hero in the MCU. Villain felt unthreatening, uninteresting, unmotivated, and underdeveloped, while returning characters were disrespected and fumbled completely. It's not all bad. It tells its story. It has themes that aren't really well woven, but are still there. And Nick Fury himself does go on a character arc that really saves the show, even though it is not executed well and is still very weak, but it still barely came together in the end. There are some entertaining moments, but the show is very disappointing overall. I give the show a 6.5 out of 10. Even though it did not do well at the box office, I'm very happy Blue Beetle was released this year as part of the DCEU, and was well received by critics and audiences who actually saw the movie. The plot, villain, set up, many of the background characters, and many other basic elements of this film seem somewhat generic, but aren't exactly generic and are more so played out, tired, and unoriginal. But they are serviceable. But the heart of the story, the character's origin, the main character of the film, his struggles, and many of the fight scenes and direction in this film do feel fresh and interesting and are very entertaining and a nice new addition to the superhero canon. I give this film an overall 8.2 out of 10 for being a very fun, enjoyable, and perfectly comfortably serviceable superhero film. If you watch one of my earlier GES videos, you will know that I'm not a fan of the Loki series, at least season 1. I fully, and maybe even more now, stand by everything I said about season 1. It is not great. A lot of it is poorly written and boring, with many pacing issues, a lack of focus, and just a lot of wasted time, with really only 2 episodes effectively and doing the character well allow Loki to grow and develop. Those being episodes 1 and 5, with some slight things happening in the episodes between, and episode 6 basically being an exposition dump and setup for the rest of the series and the MCU. But I'm not here today to review season 1, and what if I told you that I was actually looking forward to season 2, especially when I saw the first trailer. It looked as inventive, creative, and entertainingly weird as everybody praised season 1 to be. And this season, instead of just being aesthetically strange and imaginatively creative, this season instead is actually creative on those levels, plus having cinematography and direction that suits those adjectives, and the concept of this season suiting those adjectives. And the season pretty much lives up to its trailer, with only one episode, in my opinion, being a real miss, and that was either the third or fourth episode where they go back in time and actually meet Victor Timely. I have some problems with Jonathan Majors' performances, but every other performance in the show is spot on and well done, including Miss Minutes. I like the direction, writing, and production design of this season much better, and yeah, pretty much everything of this season much better than the last. This season engagingly develops the side characters, Loki, and its storyline over the course of all 6 episodes of the season that keep you compelled and allow you to feel a sense of purpose as the show progresses. It feels mostly intelligent and competent in how it handles its concepts, characters, and themes throughout the show, with only one episode feeling like filler, that being episode 2, the one I think to be the second weakest. And though it's not truly filler, it really slows the pace of the show down, and like 15 minutes of it can be cut out. Mobius and Loki's relationship is also fully fleshed out through the season, with new goals and situations that the characters are put in, and actual challenging, entertaining action throughout the show, and set pieces and things for the characters to solve, allowing for some thrills throughout the series with improved comedy and, of course, characters. The last episode, He Who Remains, and Loki's character arc are all handled beautifully in the finale of this series and season, which allow for one of the best arcs in the entire MCU to be completed and have a heartbreaking and heartfelt finale for the character of Loki, at least for now. Overall, I was actually entertained, and I actually liked this season of Loki. I give this season an 8.6 out of 10. The Marvels, and this is coming from me, I did not expect myself to say this, is not the worst film ever, and is overall good. I'm not much of a fan of the first Captain Marvel film, but I will watch it from time to time, and I will acknowledge that it is not a terrible movie in any sense, or, well, mostly any sense. I believe the biggest strength and weakness of this film to be its ambition. It is ambitious in the way it tries to integrate the 3 Marvel characters from other Phase 4 and Phase 5 properties to try to expand the universe, and how the film tries to grapple with all these characters and with these 3 different leads and their 3 different stories. And I think the way they unite these 3 with their 3 different struggles is cute, and I think this film tries to be cute in a lot of ways where it really shouldn't be. The weakness of this film's ambition is the fact that it doesn't really have much beyond the fact that it has 3 leads. It's a very safe and formulaic MCU film in the worst possible way. Not even like a Phase 2 MCU film, but it's like the worst possible version of a Phase 4 MCU film. It also does nothing to overarch the plot of the MCU overall, but that's not really this film's fault, and it does develop its characters. I also like how this film handles the character of Carol Danvers. She's not in this film as much as she is in the first one, but her character feels way more hardened, experienced, and like she's been humbled. Though the villains of the film are very weak, though it attempts to, it doesn't really effectively dive deep into any of these characters or develop them in a truly meaningful way, even though they are all developed and united together. The action in this film is subpar, and any other element you could really critique is very average to worse than average about this film. Its plot, story, and CGI are all not great. And though it attempts at a fun, wacky space tone that I think really could have been a good idea and made for a very fun superhero film if it had more ambition, gravitas, and actually dove deep into its characters and did crazy things with the cosmic universe, like the old Captain Marvel comics by Jim Starlin, but just with Ms. Marvel or Captain Marvel. And I reiterate, if this film had any of that, it could have been something much better. But instead, it has none of that. It is a very weak film, but on its own merits, it is a nice, short, little superhero film. I overall give this film a 6.5 out of 10. This, unfortunately, means that this is the lowest rated MCU film by my standards, and it's just taken the crown from Thor: The Dark World. Another film that had many similar problems, but unlike this film, was much more ambitious, and we know for a fact was tinkered with by the studio, and was edited down to a version of the film that was not intended. This film does not seem to be that. It seems to be everything wrong with the current MCU. But it can still be enjoyed if you just want to be mindlessly entertained for an hour and 30 minutes. Though not exactly the same as the original Aquaman, though not a great film, and though in some ways not as much of a gonzo blockbuster as the first Aquaman, I believe Aquaman 2 to be a fun time and be a film that stands on its own from the rest of the DCEU. And since this is the final DCEU film, I believe it to be a good note to end on, all things considered. I wouldn't pay much attention to the negative views, because since this is a sequel, it should be assumed that you watched the original Aquaman. And if you like the original Aquaman, then you should definitely watch this film. It is the first film, or Aquaman 1, but just turned up a few notches and just way wackier. Back to what I was saying about it being the final film in the DCEU, it has directorial vision, it is fun, and it absurdly embraces a uber-specific, identifiable aspect of a superhero and gives this film its own identity and does something which Marvel doesn't. Do a film that stands against other films in the franchise and has its own identity while going against expectations and still delivering on what people want, taking a few risks at least, and being a little bit of an actual movie. Overall, this film is pretty action-packed and a lot of fun. Though the pacing and tone is a little bit of a mess, I like how this film tries to go as crazy as possible and tell its story with as much enthusiasm as possible through James Wan's direction. Jason Momoa allows Aquaman's presence to be very bombastic and entertaining, and this film has great action and handles its villain as well as it needs to, and delivers a very fun villain performance. There are absurd elements to the movie that kind of weaken it, but it is just a lot of dumb fun and spectacle, and the film still tries to deliver on character moments and growth for the Aquaman character and expanding his world and allowing him to become a better father and family member. Though rough and messy in many places, this film delivers on everything it needs to be a passable film, and delivers more by being very entertaining and taking some swings that, though most of them miss, still end up creating a very unique film. I might as well squeeze two technically comic book based superhero properties into this part of the list: Gen V and Invincible. I'm not exactly going to be giving these shows ratings, but for both of them, they're above an 8.5, with Invincible Season 2 being somewhat in the 9 range, and Gen V, I think, being about an 8.6. But yes, these shows are very well done. I enjoy what Amazon's been doing with the superhero genre, and both of these shows are very well written and expand their worlds phenomenally. They are both filled with twists and turns and things you would not expect, and most importantly, great characters that are compelling, that you have emotional investment in, and that grow and develop throughout the course of the series. So yeah, go check these shows out. I almost forgot to include I Am Groot Season 2. I believe I reviewed this series of shorts in last year's 2023, or one of last year's 2022 superhero film reviews. But needless to say, I do not change my rating for the show. It still stays at an 8.4. But I believe all these shorts to be very entertaining and creative, and a nice little taste of Guardians after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So yeah, these shorts are very entertaining and let you into the mind of Groot while still allowing him to learn lessons in every episode, allowing there to be some substance there. So yeah, these beautifully animated shorts are a thumbs up for me. I'll close out this list with What If Season 2. Though I don't believe all the concepts or episodes of this season to be completely nails, I do believe that overall it has better concepts and episodes overall than Season 1. Though Season 1 has some great episodes, I feel like this season blends together very well and tells its overarching story much better than Season 1. Otherwise, this go-around is pretty much on par with Season 1. It has a lot of fun and plucky situations, characters, and ideas, along with villains that are all explored very well throughout the show. And I've noticed that the show really feels like a cartoon, but still feels like a very age-appropriate and age-inclusive show that appeals to all ages and doesn't feel like a Saturday morning cartoon while still having some of that appeal, telling all of its stories very maturely and well when they need to be. I love the references, homages, continuity, art style, and creations of this show with good characters, themes, and stories sprinkled throughout. I just hope they make another season and keep making some of this gold. I believe this season, like I said, overall to be slightly better than Season 1, allowing the show to increase its overall rating from an 8.4 to an 8.5, with this season we rating 8.6 out of 10. Nothing masterful, but still entertaining.